Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I want to share a great organization that is truly changing lives, and it's through the arts and music. Many of us don't realize how therapeutic it can be, but it's a game changer. I've learned so much from this gentleman who started Baltic Street into action. We're going to look at a segment of the population that has had some challenges, people who are incarcerated, and how this program, the arts, is helping them get back on track. Peter Jampel is our professional of the year, and he's back with us. Welcome. How are you doing?
Steve, thanks for having me. I'm doing just fine.
So previously, we learned how those with mental challenges have gotten a new feeling of life using the arts, your program, incarcerated individuals. Tell us how this supports them.
So people who are incarcerated, clearly have many issues to address in terms of returning back to their communities and being able to create support networks for themselves, financial supports, mental health supports for drug and alcohol addiction, fractured family systems, lack often of solid employment credentials. But the music and the arts dives right below all of those deficits and addresses people's strengths, the parts of them that are often ignored or underplayed. And for us, Baltic Street into Action, our efforts to address this population of people who are incarcerated, and the double whammy is people who are incarcerated who have serious mental health challenges, are even more disadvantaged and have an even greater degree of stigma, isolation, marginalization in penal institutions, and their road back is particularly troubled and difficult. So, one thing that we have aligned ourselves with is the music therapy program at Rikers Island, which for those of us in New York City are well aware is a very troubled jail that is overcrowded, that is been under a tremendous amount of scrutiny in terms of its treatment of people who are serving or are waiting their legal court cases, because it's a holding, it's a jail, it's not a prison. And so the music therapy program at Rikers Island is dealing with that subset of people who are incarcerated, who are also seriously troubled in terms of mental health challenges. Now, Baltic Street into Action has created an affiliation with an organization called Music on the Inside. And I'm going to refer to it by its acronym, MOTI. And MOTI has, for the past 10 years, developed a program that has created partnerships and working relationships between professional musicians and incarcerated people at Rikers to foster their musicality, their creativity, their capacity to become more fully engaged in musical activities. And Moti's work is something that we have supported and added on to. And the way in which we've added on to it is that we have created a linkage between the music therapy program at Rikers and Moti's musical mentorship program, and hopefully help people move from the music therapy program who are musically inclined and foster their mentorship relationships with professional musicians, which starts at Rikers, but continues upon release into the community. So the idea here is that what has been developed while a person is serving time at Rikers is nurtured, enhanced, and then used as a basis for creating a transition back to the community so that that pre-existing relationship with their musical mentor is a foundation for their continuation of their musical relationships while they're back in the community. And in this way, some of the challenges that all incarcerated people play, and in particular people with mental health issues, have a pre-existing support person and a support system, a team around this person to foster a stronger relationship through music to help bridge all of the transitional destabilizing factors that happen when people leave Rikers. They're back. Their housing sometimes is inadequate or non-existent. They're often unemployed. They're having financial problems. There are problems in family networks, social networks. People are very often underskilled when it comes to being able to manage their own personal finances and negotiate all of the challenges of re-entering society. So here's the way in which the music and the arts can work. It bridges that gap. It offers a sense of human connection through music, which, as we've talked about, Steve, is so powerful and so important, and is a way of relearning how to establish a way of connecting to other human beings that has no pre-existing connection to crime, to fractured social networks. It starts from a point of strength and empowerment. So, some of the challenges that we face have to do with the system itself, the criminal justice system, and the way in which people from Rikers are often lost once they're released. And whatever gains and connections they may make while they're in jail is often lost because of bureaucratic confusion, if not disinterest in how they adjust back in the community. And what I will be talking about today is how not only this transition can be better managed, and how we can understand the gaps in the criminal justice system and in the follow-up of people leaving the jail, and particularly people with mental health challenges leaving jail, but how to rebuild a meaningful community for people who have been incarcerated and who are in really desperate need of healthy networks.
Do you feel that those who are incarcerated, or to a large degree, and I'm not condoning anything here, but they're incarcerated for things they did, but what they did may have been out of their control in terms of how they were raised, their mental capacity, and all of that. Again, not condoning what they did,
Right.
but what got them there. Do you think that there is a correlation between the mental health status and what how they were actually raised?
Statistically, Steve, there is a strong correlation between stressful social economic environments and increased mental health difficulties. People who live in poverty, people who live in neighborhoods that are unsafe and full of fear and crime and poverty and a highly stressful environment have more mental health issues, experience more trauma. Trauma triggers all kinds of mental health issues,
Absolutely.
both short-term and long-term. And so it is well established in the literature that high levels of socioeconomic distress increases mental health disturbances. So succinctly, to answer your question, Steve, yes. People who come from broken families and broken neighborhoods will have a harder time coping with the challenges of making a good life for themselves.
How does this support the Baltic Street into Action program? Is it directly connected to the Modi program?
Okay, so here's our connection. We have created a referral process between the music therapy program at Rikers and the Modi mentorship program. And let me talk a little bit about Modi and its history and why we feel so strongly about working with them. The history of Modi really goes back to its founding director, Alina Bloomgarden, who founded jazz at Lincoln Center and was the guiding light and force in bringing jazz to Lincoln Center. She's brought a wealth of lifetime connections with her to her work with incarcerated people. And the front man for her organization is Wynton Marsalis.
Oh, wow.
And he has thrown his weight into Modi's efforts to work with incarcerated people. And they've brought in a lot of really, well-connected and fantastic musicians who are supporting their work there. Now, it's not exactly news that, the entertainment industry and the music industry has deep roots in Brooklyn, in New York City, and that the occurrence of incarceration with people of color is disproportionate to the population, that people of color are disproportionately represented in incarcerated populations. It's a long and troubled picture of, again, all of the socioeconomic disadvantages leading to not only mental health challenges, but high rates of incarceration. So Baltic Street into Action, has been aware through its connections to the music therapy program at Rikers of trying to use music to create, and I'm going to now bring in my concepts of self-expression, belonging, and achievement here. Again, for any population that deals with disability or serious socioeconomic disadvantage, music is a natural gift. It comes as a force of nature, as a opportunity to bring out the very best in people. And Moti's effort to bring the community of professional musicians to a mentorship role with incarcerated people, in my mind, is brilliant. It is what, of giving back to the community of the very most talented people who, want to bring their success and their love of music and their connections in the music world to people who have fallen by the wayside. And for us at Baltic Street into Action to hook into this project seemed like a natural for us. Now, the music therapy program is having a hard time getting people to transition successfully once they leave Rikers. We are struggling to overcome all of the structural deficits that people have when they leave the hospital. This is also true of Moti, which works with all incarcerated people and not necessarily people with serious mental health challenges. But as we've talked about before, mental health issues are just a matter of degree. Many people at Rikers who are not necessarily diagnosed with mental illness struggle with depression, high rates of suicide, many comorbid conditions, including drug addictions and substance abuse of all kinds. So for us, the work of Moti is a platform that we want to build upon and believe that we can build an even sturdier platform if we are able to identify how to help transition people more successfully once they are released into the community. And Alina and I have had many serious discussions, and we are currently in the planning stages for a grant that would put serious resources behind our efforts. And part of what Moti does is not only to create this mentorship, which continues after people leave the facility at Rikers, but they have like a gala event. They just had it on June 15th, where they bring people in from the entertainment world and they celebrate individuals who have successfully transitioned and who are models and inspirations for other people at Rikers to be able to see what could be possible for them on the other side. And we believe that a support system that tracks people throughout that transition, when they're meeting with their, probation officers, and when they're still on the inside, that we want to help music on the inside also become music on the outside, and that inside-outside process requires following a person all the way through, never losing track.
Wow.
From the planning process with the probation officer, with the music therapy team, with the MOTI mentor, and follow them. The day after they're out, make a call or have a plan to text or whatever it is, so that you don't lose a day. Because that period of time, right after release or discharge, and this is true for people who are coming through psychiatric hospitals, the most dangerous period is the 2 weeks right after discharge. That's always the critical juncture. If you can keep a person in contact during that first 2 weeks, when things can either sink back to the pre-existing condition, or you can add a whole new level of connection, that 2 week period is often the make or break time for successful or unsuccessful transitions.
This is a true eye-opener, gotta say. Wasn't aware of that, but it stands to reason. It makes complete sense, the 2 week period. And the fact that you're advocating for following them all through the process just shows how important this is and what it can do to change somebody's life in that situation. There could be programs out there of, hey, just go show up, play guitar, enjoy whatever, and then you're done. It's almost like you're walking the journey with that person. So impactful. That's fantastic. The way it should be.
Steve, but it costs money.
And there's that.
It costs money to see each person as a valued member of society, and to care and throw the resources to follow them, monitor them, keep them engaged.
Yeah.
That's not free. And get the long-term ramifications, not just from a human capital point of view of this person's life and the value of every human life, but of a return to the criminal justice system, or a return to the mental health system through reincarceration or rehospitalization, through emergency rooms, or through the criminal justice system. The cost financially is much higher than the cost of following them when they leave.
Yeah. And look at the time that they spent in the facility and how much that cost. And now you just open the door and let them go. Well, you spent all this money housing them over that period of time, whatever it might be. And now, and there it ends. It just completely does not make sense at all.
To make sense of it, you really should do a cost-benefit analysis.
For sure.
Of what it really costs to house a person, to feed a person, to provide psychiatric services, both in prisons, jails, and in mental health facilities. The cost of emergency services or return to domiciling people in an institution is phenomenal. And the benefit to the individual in terms of their self-esteem, their sense of, here again, self-expression, the musical relationship, and the opportunity to be a creating musical being is fantastic. The sense of belonging that occurs when you have a community of artists who care about you and welcome you post incarceration, phenomenal.
And it continues. That's the amazing part. It continues because you could leave, and we're out of time here, but you could leave the incarceration and that was so fantastic, and now it's done. And then what's going to happen? Invariably, probably going back to the previous lifestyle. How do we learn more about all of this, Peter?
So we are a not-for-profit 501c3 charitable organization. Our website is balticstreetintaaction.com. Our sponsor, KeyBank, has been a tremendous support in helping to promote and fund our work with incarcerated people. And come visit our website. We're updating it. These podcasts that are concentrating on specific projects are being put up on our website, in addition to the information about each project that is available on balticstreetintaaction.com.
You bring so much to light, Peter, things that we don't realize what's going on out there, and how what seems to be a pretty easily achievable situation. Yes, it costs money. How that can impact the cost analysis. It needs to be done. Absolutely. We're out of time. Thank you so much for today. Learned so much, and love your passion for helping people. Appreciate it.
Steve, really good to talk to you, and looking forward to our next conversation.
You too. We're coming right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.